Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. We're going to look at kind of the top tier decks up to Mythic rank for the Timeless Best of 3 format. If you're looking for Timeless Best of 1, if you're looking for Standard, Explorer, Historic, we've done some Alchemy, we've done some Brawl. Just check out the playlist, Metagame Breakdown, and the most recent video, which we try to cover every format weekly, Best of 1, Best of 3. Where we can't, it's usually about a 1 to 2 week lag. But we usually try to cover everything, the trends, everything of that nature. If there's metagame challenges, we got you covered with best decks. If there is qualifier weekend, we got you covered with best decks. So kind of your hub of the best decks that you can take for each of the format to kind of rank up in that regard. So we're getting the data. This is a perspective from UntapGG. It's a companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates users' win rates, gives us a whole bunch of cool stats. Link for Untapped is in the video description if you want to get started with tracking your win rates. And like I said, it's not the full population, but it's the best we can get. So it's a representative sample in terms of people who are using the tool and then just kind of trending with the win rates themselves. So we're going to look at a number of deck lists today between Diamond and Mythic rank. And we're going to look at the popularity of the decks in terms of the meta distribution. And then we're going to look at a couple community decks that are doing well for folks that are a little bit out of the norm or a little bit different than the status quo. So we'll cover all that in today's video. So we're going to jump in. Timeless metagame. We're looking Platinum to Mythic just in terms of play popularity, but for the actual win rates, we'll look at Diamond to Mythic. This is just the distribution of decks that you're going to be seeing between these ranks. So Jund Midrange, the highest, 16.7%. There's quite a few configurations of Jund. It's probably one of the most flexible decks. Jund is typically that. Jund is the good cards, 2-for-1 special. So there's a lot of variants that we can kind of look at in that respect. There's Grixis Shadow that we'll see. There's some more slightly aggressive versions. There's some more controlling versions. The one we're going to be focusing on today is a little bit more controlling. It's got the Jace Valky combo built into it. We have Rakdos Burn, kind of the aggro deck of the format, Jund Shadow, and then we have Dimir Control, and then Dimir Mill. Dimir Mill's been incredibly popular since coming to Timeless with Archive Trap and stuff like that. It's been terrible in terms of win rate, so we will not be covering that in terms of our best decks for today. For the most part, the distribution's been fairly normalized. Like Jund's kind of taken over as the highest played deck. We see a decrease in Shadow. In all honesty, like we have not been getting data for show and tell. I'll pull up a deck list. I'll include a deck list of show and tell for folks who are interested. It's been pretty stock since then. So I will find a deck list. I'll link it in there. The combo's pretty much been set. There hasn't been huge amounts of innovation in that space that I've seen, at least. The mana base could get a little bit better with the new fetches, but we haven't been seeing it. Like in Best of 1, it's been very popular. Like if we look at Best of 1, the show and tell is the highest played deck. It just seems like more increasingly folks are kind of gaming for show and tell in the format in best of 3. Still be played, could be people got bored of it. It's a fairly repetitive combo, all things considered. So basically just kind of going through the motions, but I'll link a deck list if you are interested. I'll have it in the description as well that you can pull that. I'll see what's kind of the most up to date and kind of go from there. So we have that. Jumping into the games themselves, we have 3,700 games, Diamond and Mythic rank for the last week, May 18th through to today. And we're going to cover a couple different variants of decks. So we have Mono Black Reanimator. We see it in 2 instances, being the highest win rate deck, 85% and 83% respectively. And the core of the decks are fairly similar. This one here is kind of more of a mid-range deck that has a reanimate sub-theme. So both your big reanimate threats, you're not doing something huge, it's just more value play. But you have Harvester of Misery, which can self-discard itself for 2 mana. That can be used as removal, kill a Bowmaster, kill a Deathrite Shaman, anything of that nature. And then when it comes in, all other creatures get -2/2, so it kind of cleans up the board on both sides. And then you also have Troll of Khazan Doom, which is kind of the go-to reanimate threat, just given that it cycles itself, it finds a land, and it's kind of basically unblockable. It needs 3 creatures from your opponent's side to block it, so kind of pseudo unblockable. The rest of the deck is just a lot of interactive spells, Thought Seizes, Fatal Pushes. You have Dark Ritual, You kind of do the dream line of Dark Ritual, Cycle Troll, Reanimate, which is kind of sweet. Same with the Harvester. Death Right's in here for card advantage. Bowmasters, Demonic Tutor can help you find key pieces. And then you have One Ring Shelly to kind of pull it all together. In the mana base, you'll also see an Overgrown Tomb and then the Underground Mortuary to get you the green mana for Deathrite Shaman. And then this one's actually kind of interesting because you have where is it? Gate of the Black Dragon. Now this can be fetched with swamps. So you can then also have a land that can be activated to seek a non-land card. Hand Hate, more removal, just kind of various Hand Hate cards. You have Pithing Needle for activated abilities, Surgical to kind of break up combo pieces. You can Thoughtseize their Show and Tell and steal that. Meat Hook and Path to Peril for the aggressive decks, and then Ashiok for anything like tutoring, and then also has incidental Graveyard Hate built into it as well. So this version of Mono Black is very similar. We see kind of the same core of early threats, the Lilianas, but this version is the Sorin version, so you got a vampire sub-theme. The Vein Ripper makes sense. The Preacher makes sense because it's another threat off Dark Ritual that doesn't get hit by Bolt. These two cards I'm uncertain of. I think they're more win-more. Bloodletter doubling damage. It's a 2/4 that doesn't do anything unless you're already kind of ahead in a way. And then there's Queen's Bay Paladin. I could see this one maybe because it's just another way to reanimate. So whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, return up to one target vampire from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter, meaning if it dies, it gets exiled, and then you lose life equal to its mana value. So it's basically reanimate on a stick, so it's another way to kind of reanimate your vampires. Very similar mana-based configurations with the deck. Very similar in terms of the sideboard, Needles, Surgical. This version here does have access to Veil of Summer, as well as Abrupt Decay. I think this card should be seeing much more play in the format than it does. You have Long Goodbye in the sideboard, just uncounterable removal. Fairly flexible as well because it could hit Oko, it could hit Teferi as well. You see the Raucous Theater in here in the Blood Crypt that allows you to run Roiling Vortex for show and tell matchups, and then just anti-combo hate with like Necromentia, Sheoldred's Edict. Then for the bigger mana decks, you have City Stalker Connoisseur to attack at your opponent's hand. Then go to 5-color Zoo, 77%. And this version here is the more you'll usually see, like in Best of 1, it's just very linear. It's all creatures. In Best of 3, you tend to see more of the Planeswalker package, Oko and Minskin mixed into there. You have just a single copy of Breakout in this version. In Best of 1, this number is a little bit higher, but very aggressively slanted deck, a lot of powerful creatures. And then you have Tribal Flames that deals 5. Stubborn Denial as like a Force Spike that can then become just 1 mana counter non-creature. You have Ferocious. This version here is also playing a couple of the new lands, Scalding Tarn and Misty Rainforest, that were introduced with the anthology. Very expensive anthology, 40,000. I'm just going to be crafting the cards. Sideboard, just Lightning Bolt for more removal, activated abilities, enter the battlefield effects, the other Bowmaster for heavy card draw, Graveyard Hate, Whirling Vortex versus combo hate, like Show and Tell. And then Oko for the grindier matchups, as well as even against like Burn or something, just being able to gain life is reasonable. Then go to 5-color Reanimator. So 76%. Reanimator's been very popular in the format. This version here, we still see access to like Harvester Misery. You have the Sorin package with, honestly, it's only 2 Vein Rippers in here. And interesting. You also have Saint Elenda, the new Alchemy Vampire. So 4/7 lifelink, 7 mana. You're probably not hard casting this ever. It's triple white, and you don't play more than 1 white card. So you are going to be using this for its spellbook ability, which gets you a bunch of things that like gain you life on it. So it's like Faith Better. You get rid of a creature in terms of being able to attack or activated abilities or block, and you gain 4 life. At the beginning of your end step, you get to create a avatar creature equal to the number of life points you gain for the turn. You have Atrax in here. You have Grenzo, the other new alchemy card that lets you heist. So you get some value from there, some free parts. You have the Reanimator as well as assemble the parts in terms of reanimation. And you can loot through your library with Faithless Looting or Collector's Vault. You're a little bit softer in this version here to Bowmaster. You'll notice that outside of like Harvester of Misery, you don't actually have ways to kill a Bowmaster. So a little bit more all in on reanimation in this deck. Sideboard, Fatal Push. You have Inquisition for there's some discard, Surgical Extraction, Rolling Vortex as I mentioned. What's kind of cool with this version, Your opponent's likely going to bring Graveyard Hate, so you just pivot into a Sneak and Show attack, Sneak and Show deck. So you have access to Show and Tell and Sneak Attack, so you just kind of cheat them in that way there. So it's an interesting kind of post-board configuration change. We have Rakdos Burn, 73.9, so the biggest kind of innovation is Slick Shot Show-Offs coming in as a 3-of in the deck. Still have a lot of cheap burn, Kumanos, Okibas, Bump in the Night is cheap burn, Skewers, Light Up the Stage, all kind of mixed into here. The one thing I played this deck in best of one, the Raucous Theater feels terrible in this deck. You don't want, like, you need all your lands untapped. Every mana source matters in this deck because you want to get them killed by turn 3 or 4. You're not playing a long game. You're not trying to set things up for like a combo. I cut them very quickly. They just felt more awkward than anything. And then just play like more copies of Bloodstained Mire or like Blood Crypt if you want. In lieu of it, you can play another mountain, you can play Ramanat Bruins. There's other things you can do to get some utility out of your lands. I found this very awkward in the deck itself. Luris Companion, just removal. The Reanimate's interesting, so you can also reanimate out of your opponent's yard, which is kind of cool. So it gives you an avenue of attack there. It also is just a cheap way to rebuy your creatures. Thoughtseize for hand hate, the other Bowmaster for heavy draw decks, Whirling Vortex for like combo or control. Searing Blood is cheap removal that burns, and the Murderous Cut as a cheap kind of, you're putting so many cards into your graveyard, it's fairly easy to have this just be 1 mana, destroy target creature, so deal with like an Atraxa or something like that. Most popular deck, we get to Jund Midrange, 66.7, and again, various ways to build this deck. This is probably the more kind of stock version. Jarsel being the 3-drop, a couple Fables, Blood Moon in the main. You'll sometimes see Lelia in here, which is getting a reprint in Modern Horizons 3. It's Minsk on the top end, earliest iteration for card advantage. You got Goyfs, Bowmasters, and then just a plethora of cheap 1-mana interaction. Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push, Deathrite Shaman. What I like about this is because you have Fable, it's a cheap way to kind of get rid of your discard when you no longer need it. Jarsel can also rebuy all these cheap cards, so you get some utility and value out of that. The biggest thing here, you'll want to switch up your mana base. You no longer need to play Polluted Delta or Windswept Teeth. You can play the green-black fetch in here, so you get some utility there now. So you can play that. It just fixes up the mana a lot better. You don't have to play these like awkward, because we have the Bloodstained Mire already, and then we have Wooded Foothills. So yeah, you could just play the green-black. That's Verdant Catacombs is the land. Fatal Pushes, just again, more cheap interaction, protection effects, Blood Moon were relevant, in grindier games you have Fable, just a bunch of different kind of removal options. I would probably find space for maybe either another Surgical, could be really good. You're bringing so much hand hate that it's a cheap way to kind of interact in that respect. Moving on, we go to Grixis Shadow, 65%. So this is, you got Death Shadow in here, then you have the Valky Jace combo. So basically, for those who haven't seen it, what you do is you use Jace, you plus it to plot a card from your hand, you plot the Valky, and then you're able to cast the Tibalt for 0 mana. So you get some value in that respect. Another common line is put Luris to hand and then plot it with Jace. So the subsequent turn, you get to cast the Luris for free. Otherwise, the deck's just a bunch of interaction. This is more controlling in nature. The one thing here, instead of Counterspell, you should be playing Mana Drain. So that would be kind of a change you can make in that respect. But hand hate, cheap counters, removal options, Bowmasters, like Drown in the Lock, Expressive for some card advantage mixed in. Sideboard, just various kind of interaction spells as needed, counter spells, things like Spell Snare, Invasive Surgery can exile Show and Tell, Demonic Tutor, Spell Snare, Aether Gust for like red-green decks, just cheap removal options, all kind of scattered into that respect. From there, we have another similar deck. So this is the Dimir variant. So no Death Shadows. It's a little heavier in control. You'll see the mana drains in this one here. Bowmasters. So this one, you have Lorian's Reveal, just a bunch more cheap interactions, Stern Scolding. So this one's really trying to leverage the Jace Valky line or just win through Bowmasters or Luris Beatdown that you would see. Sideboard, again, very similar. You have like various removal options, Graveyard Hate, Counterspell, stuff of that nature. Usually you'll see Demonic Tutor in the sideboard. Basically, think of a Demonic Tutor as your second copy of any of your sideboard cards. Just gives you that flexibility. So instead of having, say, 2 Drown in the Locks or 2 Thoughtseize, when needed, you can just bring in the Demonic Tutor, and it plays in that respect. Some card advantage, graveyard hate, token hate, just a whole bunch of useful cards that are kind of scattered in the mana base. Then we're going to look at some community decks. So this one is from Gacho99. They went 10-2 into Mythic rank with it. And this is a Yorion 5-color deck. So the big thing with this deck here, we'll probably see some new cards coming in through the element, like the pitch elementals. You have Omnath. You can play Fury. You can play the white one that pass the exile things. There's just a lot of good cards that are coming with the pitch elementals. Elish Norn doubles, you'll likely see Once Upon a Time get played. So this is kind of the core of the deck, I think, that can be leveraged. You'll see like Misty Rainforest get included in the mana base here as a newer card, but Deathrite Shaman, Halfling help you early. Path to Exile, Source Splasher, Lightning Bolt, all cheap interaction early. You have Expressive Iteration for card advantage, Uros in here, Oko's Cosmic Rebirth can buy any of these cheap cards back. One Ring for value. Leyline Binding is another cheap 1-mana removal spell. You have Surgical in here for cheap exile. Veil's Protection. Containment Priest comes in against Vein Ripper styles to kind of cheat into play vampire decks, or Reanimator decks, vampire decks, stuff of that nature. Vetoes for Encounterable. Ashiok for Graveyard Hate. Supreme Verticus Sweeper. And then Commandeer can just steal big things for free. So kind of like the OG pitch effect before the pitch elementals. I guess Force to Will still existed before that. And then the other version is a Dimir variant, went 41-21. They went to like high percentage of Mythic, not into the numbers yet. Very similar idea to some of the other vampire packages, but this one being Dimir. So you have Reanimation that kind of leverages things like Otherworldly Gaze as a way to kind of put cards into your graveyard. You have the Necro package, and then you have Vein Ripper and Saint Elenda with the Sorin. Brainstorm helps you set up your draws. So just a little bit more disruption kind of package built into that one there. So just another take on the kind of the vampires. That's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been enjoying, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.